we're still at that wonderful moment where the oar is mistaken for a winnowing shovel. You and I have talked about what a winnowing shovel is and how relevant that is to this particular critical moment when criteria have to be used and where we have to be critical ourselves of our own values in order to make the right choice on how to take this story further, how to understand this story further.
Can I ask, what do you mean by critical of our own values?
Well, if you're, let's say, a Greek in the 5th century, some people are agriculturists, some people are sailors. If you go further back, let's say Hesiodic poetry, it gets a little messier because, well, you can be maritime for part of the year, but then you better stop being maritime because the weather gets bad. And if you're still maritime, that means you're over-acquisitive. And you should really be sticking to more traditional values, and that's earthbound values. So agriculture tends to trump sailing. There are all sorts of moral lessons to be drawn from people who stretch the period where they venture out into the sea because they're so eager to sell their wares. Because maritime activity is connected with business, whereas agricultural activity is connected with subsistence.
Okay.
So there are all sorts of ways that the culture, the song culture, plays with the distinction between a seafaring kind of life and a landbound kind of life.
And is that also restraint and incitement?
Yes, because if you're landbound, you're used to the rhythms of the earth.
Seasonality.
And you respect what happens when. Whereas if you're venturing out into the sea, you're taking opportunities, you're taking risks. Sometimes you really strike it rich, and sometimes you have disasters.
So why is that distinction important to this passage as we're discussing it now?
It's because, in a sense, this challenge to understand the signal, the sema, which could be the tomb of Odysseus, is also a challenge for us to understand who we are and whether we consider ourselves maritime people or agricultural people. And this will be relevant to how we imagine the tomb of Odysseus. So it has to do almost with life choices. It's at this crisis point, this critical moment, that Odysseus has to plant whatever it is that he's carrying on his shoulder into this pile, this heaped up whatever. And again, let's think of it as a silhouette. There it is. I can see this, and then I can see something sticking out, and then there's the blade, because both winnowing shovels and oars have a blade that's sticking out of the handle, and the blade is facing up towards the sky. The bottom of the handle is stuck into the pile. So I think we can see that, right? How that would look as a silhouette, let's say a bright shape against a background of black. So I'm inverting what's white and black in silhouettes. But there it is. We can do it the other way too, but all I'm saying is that's the shape.
Right.
And then you sacrifice to Poseidon. Well, for Odysseus, that's his divine antagonist. Is that okay? We'll get to that question later. And he sacrifices a ram, a bull, and a boar. And then, this is problematical, in line 132, then you go home. Well, where's home? I guess Ithaca, right? And you offer sacred hecatombs, in other words, huge sacrifices there. I mean, technically that would be 100 cattle. And you have to do it in the right order. And then this isn't clear either in line 134, if I may continue. Then death will come to you. And then it's a very riddling kind of description of a death. It's gentle, but it'll kill you. And then 136, and then you'll lose your strength. Your strength will kind of flow out of you in a prosperous old age, just the opposite of the fate of Achilles, where he had to say, all right, I'm dying young. I guess Odysseus will die old. However, we're supposed to interpret that. And then this is getting very riddling. This is the language of hero cult. People around you, but who's you? I guess if you're dead, then the people who are around you are people who are around your corpse will be blessed. And there it is, olbioi. And there you see the meaning of olbios in its deeper level, where both the cult hero is olbios as blessed because he or she has achieved an afterlife and has all sorts of powers to help people in this life, but also the worshippers, by virtue of making contact with the body or anything that is in contact with the body, like the Mother Earth that contains the body, or even better, the tomb that encases the body, that's sticking out like a pile from Mother Earth. If worshippers make that kind of contact, what'll happen, they'll be olbioi too, not just in a superficial sense of fortunate, but in the deeper sense of blessed, because they're making contact with the blessed. And then, thanks a lot, all the things I say are unmistakably true.
And so that the creation of truth is part of this process, is what it's signaling, right?
It's a process. Truth is a process. And it's a process where you make choices over and over and over again. And each choice is in the setting of a crisis. It's a critical moment. And for that critical moment, we need to have our critical faculties.